To understand why Jungkook has effectively taken America's pop crown, it is necessary to examine how his music strategically reflects, integrates, and capitalizes on three crucial shifts: the internationalization of pop sounds, the transformation of music distribution platforms, and the evolving expectations of listeners who no longer prioritize geography, but rather universality and relatability. For decades, American pop was built on a near monopoly of sound design, production infrastructure, and star-making systems. From the Motown era to the rise of digital hip-hop and EDM, the US dictated global taste. However, in the past decade, the rise of K-pop and other international genres has eroded this monopoly. Jungkook's musical approach does not attempt to replicate American formulas in a secondary manner. Instead, it absorbs elements of global genres and reintroduces them to the US audience with a refined universality. Consider his solo works and collaborations. They incorporate R&B textures reminiscent of The Weeknd, EDM-driven crescendos akin to Calvin Harris, and even acoustic singer-songwriter sensibilities associated with Ed Sheeran. Yet these influences are not simply borrowed. They are hybridized into compositions that are not bound to any single national market. In effect, Jungkook produces music that is global first, American inclusive second. This order is significant because it demonstrates that he is not merely entering US pop, but redefining it from a transnational perspective. American pop stars, by contrast, often design music with domestic chart performance as the primary concern. Their experimentation is constrained by expectations of radio formatting, demographic targeting, and Billboard chart strategies. Jungkook, freed from such historical baggage, can seamlessly merge Afrobeat-inspired rhythms, trap percussion, and K-pop polish into one package. This type of music resonates strongly in the US, precisely because audiences are now attuned to Spotify playlists that cross borders, TikTok trends that originate anywhere, and collaborations that erase traditional cultural lines. The dismantling of traditional gatekeepers in the US music industry has been central to Jungkook's ascendancy. In the past, radio programmers, label executives, and entertainment conglomerates determined which artists gained visibility. This system inherently favored American-born stars and limited the international penetration of non-English music. Streaming and social platforms have rewritten these rules. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and TikTok prioritize engagement metrics over national identity. An algorithm does not care whether a track originates in Seoul, Los Angeles, or Lagos. It amplifies songs that keep listeners engaged. Jungkook's digital dominance emerges naturally within this framework. His massive global fandom ensures strong streaming numbers within hours of release, which in turn signals algorithms to push his music onto editorial playlists and trending charts. But beyond fandom-driven volume, the sonic structure of his music is deliberately optimized for digital virality. Short hooks, atmospheric bridges, and rhythm-heavy choruses align with TikTok usage, encouraging remix culture and dance challenges. Unlike many US artists who treat TikTok virality as an afterthought, Jungkook integrates it into the design of his releases without diluting artistic integrity. The outcome is a consistent visibility cycle that traditional American stars struggle to replicate because their promotion still relies heavily on legacy PR systems. It is also crucial to note that Jungkook's bilingual and English language releases bridge an accessibility gap that historically limited K-pop's mainstream success in America. While early waves of Korean acts achieved niche popularity, language barriers restricted radio play and casual listener adoption. Jungkook's decision to release fully English songs while maintaining Korean material in other projects allows him to access two overlapping but distinct markets. This dual strategy positions him above US seish pop stars who primarily target a domestic audience with limited international adaptability. Today's American pop listeners operate in a cultural environment where playlists include Bad Bunny, BTS, Rosalia, and The Weeknd side by side. The implicit assumption is that pop is no longer synonymous with American. This expectation shift benefits Jungkook disproportionately because he embodies the very idea of borderless pop. In interviews, reviews, and fan discourse, Jungkook is not described as a foreign act attempting to break into the US. Rather, he is discussed as an integral part of contemporary pop. His Grammy campaign, Billboard charting, and collaborations with Western producers reinforce this perception. In other words, his identity as a Korean artist is not erased but recontextualized. It becomes a marker of authenticity and diversity rather than an obstacle. This shift creates a dilemma for American pop stars. They are now competing on a global stage where their domestic celebrity status is insufficient. For instance, while an American singer might dominate US radio for a summer, Jungkook's releases achieve synchronized global chart placements across multiple continents. This scale of influence is redefining what pop crown means. It no longer refers to US chart dominance alone, but to worldwide resonance with the US as one of many major nodes. The structural advantages Jungkook holds are therefore multi-layered. Global-first sound design that resonates in the US without being constrained by American traditions. Algorithmic compatibility that maximizes visibility in a platform-driven industry. Audience alignment with the new understanding of pop as borderless. These combined factors explain why American artists cannot easily counter his rise. Their competitive strategies are locked into legacy systems that prioritize domestic media, rely on traditional touring circuits, and assume linguistic homogeneity. Jungkook, on the other hand, operates with a transnational blueprint that is inherently more adaptive. It is not that US pop stars lack talent. Rather, their institutional framework is less suited for the 2020s and beyond. Jungkook represents the optimized model for this new reality. His every release serves as a case study in how to bypass barriers, engage directly with global audiences, and redefine what it means to be a pop star in America. The larger implication of Jungkook's takeover is that the American music industry is no longer the uncontested epicenter of pop. This does not mean it has become irrelevant, but its ability to dictate terms has been weakened. The industry must now engage in reciprocal relationships with international stars rather than assuming unilateral dominance. Labels, streaming platforms, and award institutions are recalibrating to this reality. Jungkook's prominence forces them to reconsider marketing strategies, collaboration pipelines, and distribution priorities. For example, a US label signing a new pop act must now ask, can this artist compete not just with domestic peers, but with global heavyweights like Jungkook, who command multinational audiences? In this sense, Jungkook's ascension to America's pop crown is not merely a symbolic gesture, but a structural disruption. It represents a redistribution of cultural power that will define the next decade of music. His reign is not dependent on temporary hype, but is anchored in the very mechanics of how music reaches listeners in 2025. When examining why Jungkook has successfully secured the position as America's new pop crown holder, one cannot focus exclusively on his artistic merit or global fan power. While talent and cultural influence are crucial, they are only part of the explanation. A deeper layer of analysis reveals that his rise is also the result of a sophisticated business ecosystem that integrates Korean entertainment systems, Western label partnerships, global brand alliances, and digital monetization strategies. This infrastructure, carefully constructed and executed, has enabled Jungkook to transcend barriers that have historically limited non-American acts. The combination of Korean idol training methodology, international distribution partnerships, and brand synergies creates an almost unbeatable machine. U.S. pop stars, operating largely as individual entities with fragmented support systems, struggle to compete with the scale, precision, and adaptability of this model. Jungkook's dominance is not accidental, but built on a structural foundation that reshapes how pop music operates in America. Before entering the US market, Jungkook had already undergone the rigorous K-pop idol training system. Unlike many American singers who rely on raw talent or individual development, the idol training model is designed to produce multifaceted performers who can excel in singing, dancing, stage presence, and public persona simultaneously. This preparation ensures that when artists like Jungkook step into the global arena, they are fully equipped to perform at the highest level across multiple platforms. From a business standpoint, this creates significant efficiency. American labels often invest heavily in developing an artist post-debut, hiring vocal coaches, choreographers, media trainers, and PR strategists to fill gaps. Jungkook arrived on the US stage as a complete package. This reduces costs, shortens the timeline to market dominance, and allows resources to be allocated toward maximizing global reach rather than internal development. Furthermore, the idol system emphasizes group discipline, adaptability, and work ethic. These qualities translate directly into reliability for business partners. Whether performing at global award shows, participating in high-pressure interviews, or collaborating with major Western producers, Jungkook consistently delivers professional results. For corporate partners in America, this reliability is a valuable asset, particularly in an industry where stars are often unpredictable and prone to controversies that disrupt business continuity. Another critical factor in Jungkook's takeover is the way his management structures collaborations with US labels and distributors. Instead of attempting to independently penetrate the American market, Korean companies like HYBE have established partnerships with major US entities such as Universal Music Group and Geffen Records. These partnerships ensure access to American radio promotion, Grammy campaign infrastructure, and Billboard chart qualification processes. For Jungkook specifically, this has meant that his solo releases benefit from the dual advantage of Korean fan-driven engagement and American industry-standard promotion. The result is a level of visibility that most international artists cannot achieve. His songs not only dominate global streaming platforms, but also receive traditional US industry validation through radio play, television appearances, and awards recognition. This dual infrastructure neutralizes the typical disadvantages faced by foreign acts in the American market. Instead of being treated as outsiders, Jungkook's releases are positioned as integral components of the US pop calendar. This institutional legitimacy reinforces his cultural crown while simultaneously normalizing the presence of a non-American artist at the very center of US pop. Music alone is no longer sufficient for sustained dominance in the American pop landscape. Visibility across fashion, lifestyle, and technology sectors is equally important. Here, Jungkook holds a decisive edge through his global brand alliances, particularly with Calvin Klein. As the global face of Calvin Klein, Jungkook has extended his influence into American fashion discourse, ensuring that his name circulates not only in music media but also in mainstream lifestyle and commercial spaces. Fashion campaigns generate imagery, magazine covers, and billboard placements that reach demographics beyond traditional music audiences. This saturation builds an omnipresence that American stars often struggle to match unless they secure similar high-level brand partnerships. Moreover, Jungkook's association with Calvin Klein positions him at the intersection of music and fashion, a space traditionally dominated by American icons like Madonna, Beyoncé, and Rihanna. By occupying this territory, Jungkook signals that he is not merely a visiting artist, but a permanent cultural fixture in America. Each campaign, photo shoot, and Fashion Week appearance reinforces his pop crown, making it nearly impossible for domestic competitors to ignore his presence. One of the most underestimated elements of Jungkook's dominance is the business model underlying his relationship with fans. The K-pop industry pioneered advanced direct-to-consumer strategies long before American artists adopted them. These include physical album versions, collectible merchandise, fan engagement platforms, and global live-streamed events. In the US, artists typically rely on record sales, touring, and merchandise sold at concerts. Jungkook, however, operates within a system where fans worldwide can directly purchase multiple versions of an album, limited edition goods, or exclusive content through platforms like Weverse. This model maximizes revenue per fan and generates massive sales figures that directly influence US chart rankings. For example, the physical sales of Jungkook's albums far surpass those of most American pop stars, even when overall physical album consumption in the US has declined. This creates a paradox. While US acts struggle to maintain physical relevance, Jungkook's fan-driven infrastructure uses physical albums as a competitive advantage, ensuring stronger billboard placements and media coverage. The scalability of this fan economy means that Jungkook's business infrastructure does not depend solely on US audiences. Yet when those global sales are counted toward US charts, the perception is that Jungkook is outcompeting American stars on their own turf. This structural advantage cements his image as the pop crown holder. Touring has historically been one of the strongest indicators of a pop star's dominance in America. However, Jungkook's business infrastructure redefines what touring success looks like. Instead of focusing exclusively on the US market, his potential tours are structured as global circuits with synchronized fan engagement strategies. This allows for larger-scale productions, diversified revenue streams, and more balanced risk management. American artists often depend heavily on US touring income, which makes them vulnerable to fluctuations in domestic demand. Jungkook, supported by a worldwide fan base, can stage arena-level or stadium-level events across Asia, Europe, and the Americas. The US leg of such tours becomes part of a global spectacle rather than the sole determinant of financial success. From a perception standpoint, this global touring power reinforces his pop crown in America, because American audiences and media outlets witness his dominance in parallel with international acclaim. When his concerts sell out across multiple continents, US coverage frames him as a global superstar rather than a foreign act testing American waters. Another element of Jungkook's business advantage is the integration of data-driven decision-making. Korean entertainment companies invest heavily in analyzing streaming metrics, fan behavior, and market trends. This data is then used to optimize release schedules, promotional campaigns, and even setlist designs. In contrast, American labels, while advanced, often rely on legacy promotional strategies that are slower to adapt. For instance, Jungkook's release timings often coincide with optimal global consumption windows, ensuring maximum visibility across time zones. His promotional appearances are strategically distributed across US late-night shows, global live streams, and fan-centered events, maximizing both mainstream media impact and fan engagement. This adaptive business model ensures that every release is not only a cultural event but also a commercial success. The precision with which his campaigns are executed leaves little room for competitors to outmaneuver him. American stars may release music backed by traditional hype cycles, but Jungkook's campaigns operate with military-level efficiency, ensuring consistent dominance. To fully appreciate Jungkook's business advantage, it is important to consider the structural limitations of American stars. Many operate within fragmented ecosystems, where management, labels, and branding agencies are separate entities with conflicting interests. This lack of integration slows decision-making and weakens campaign execution. Furthermore, US stars often depend heavily on domestic chart performance to validate their careers, leaving them less prepared to compete on a truly global scale. Their touring structures, promotional models, and fan engagement strategies remain largely US-centric. In contrast, Jungkook's infrastructure is designed from the ground up to prioritize global synchronization.